Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we're now in day 6 of the Democrats' government shutdown. Day 6. And I'm wondering just what exactly Democrats think they're gaining from all of this. I guess they're getting points from the far-left interest groups that they've been coordinating their shutdown strategy with. But I highly doubt that they're earning a lot of points with everyday, hardworking Americans, like the voters that they lost in the last election. Mr. President, a Reuters headline from Thursday noted, and I quote, U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Let me just read that again, Mr. President. U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. The article noted that while the Trump Agriculture Department is doing its best to continue administering the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, more commonly known as WIC, the program is, quote, critically low on funds. And it won't get new funds until Democrats agree to reopen the government. Mr. President, Democrats own this. They own any lapse in funding for critical food aid programs, just as they own every other negative effect of the shutdown. Because let's remember, Mr. President, the only reason the government is shut down is because Democrats refuse to accept a clean, nonpartisan funding extension. A clean, nonpartisan funding extension. We didn't ask Democrats to swallow any new Republican policies. We didn't ask them to swallow any partisan riders. We simply asked them to agree to a clean, nonpartisan bill. The same kind of bill, Mr. President, I might add, that they voted for 13 times. 13 times during the Biden administration. The Democrats said no. And I should note, Mr. President, that you don't have to take my word for it on the facts of the bill. Republicans aren't the only ones pointing out that this is a clean CR. Here's what the president of the Teamsters Union had to say the other day, and I quote, "A shutdown will hurt working people, period. Senators should pass the House-passed clean, short-term funding bill," end quote. Senators should pass the House-passed clean, short-term funding bill, end quote. Again, that from the president of the Teamsters Union. Or, you could take the word of a mainstream journalist who recently noted, and I quote, "In a vacuum, this CR would get almost every Democrat vote." It just would. This is a clean CR that has no partisan riders, extends a bunch of programs that are Democrat priorities. It's clean. It's clean, Mr. President. So to summarize, Democrats have shut down the government because they refuse to accept a clean, nonpartisan bill. And why are they refusing to accept it? After all, as I mentioned, they supported similar bills 13 times during the Biden administration. The reason that they refused to accept it is that Democrats still cannot get over the fact that the American people elected President Trump. And when their far-left base demanded a showdown with the president, Democrats fell in line. And now it's the American people who are suffering the consequences. I quote again, U.S. government shutdown threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Threatens food aid program for low-income Americans. Mr. President, 3 Democrats have rejected their party's shutdown politics and voted with Republicans to reopen the government. All Democrats will get another chance to vote to reopen the government later today. And for the sake of the American people, I hope at least a few more Democrats will join us to pass this clean, nonpartisan CR and let the Senate get back to work. Mr. President, I move to proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 459.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Mr.
Clerk will report the nomination.
Nomination, the judiciary, Jennifer Lee Mascott of Delaware, to be United States Circuit Judge for the Third Circuit.
Mr. President, I send a cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Jennifer Lee Mascott of Delaware to be United States Circuit Judge for the Third Circuit, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent the reading of the names be waived,
Without objection.
and I moved to proceed to legislative session.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
consent upon be dispensed with.
Objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, today is the sixth day of Donald Trump's government shutdown. Senate Democrats returned to Washington ready to negotiate. We're ready to work with Republicans to reopen the government and end the health care crisis that faces tens of millions of Americans. But it takes two sides to have a negotiation. We need the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans and the President to come to the table. And meanwhile, Donald Trump and Speaker Johnson seem to be on another planet. Instead of trying to solve this shutdown crisis, Donald Trump spent the weekend golfing and posting memes and deep fakes on the internet. He seems to think this shutdown is some big joke. He's wrong. People will lose their paychecks. Seniors will see Social Security support services slow down. There will be chaos for travelers. This shutdown is all on Donald Trump's shoulders, and Americans agree, according to the polls. Poll after poll after poll, from CBS to the Washington Post to Marist to Morning Consult and many others, consistently show that the public sees the president as most responsible for the shutdown. He's in charge. His party holds majorities across the government. So Americans naturally and correctly believe the burden is on him to fix this mess. Speaker Johnson, meanwhile, has canceled yet another week of session for the House. Why? Because the Speaker knows House Republicans are bitterly divided on health care. He knows a large chunk of his conference doesn't want to fix people's premiums at all. The right-wing MAGA folks. Meanwhile, some of his less extreme members feel a necessity to fix this mess. The Speaker knows these divisions in his conference are serious and deep. So what does the Speaker do with these divisions in his conference, almost irreconcilable? He ducks. He chooses the politically expedient way out. He keeps the Congress out of session for weeks at a time, passes to the Senate a partisan bill with no Democratic input. That's not leadership. That's derelict. Even today, the Speaker said that we can deal with the ACA crisis sometime later. He said, wait, kick the can down the road, to postpone any negotiation until the very last minute. Speaker Johnson, I ask him the question, why the wait? Why not solve this crisis now? If you're not ready to solve it now, how do we know you're going to solve it 45 days from now? When you won't even do it now, and the same reasons that hold you back now will exist then. Insurers are waiting around to set rates for next year. They're doing it right now, not 3 months from now. Delay has always been Speaker Johnson's MO. Speaker Johnson has survived by kicking the can down the road on every major issue under his speakership, promising everyone that the thing they wanted is just around the corner. He did it repeatedly with the Freedom Caucus, for instance. And he's doing the same thing now with health care. If Speaker Johnson is serious about lowering costs and protecting the health care of the American people, why wait? Most of America, when Johnson says later, they know he means never. Democrats want to deal with the health care problem now. A recent poll by KFF shows that 80% of Americans want to extend the ACA tax credits, including 60% of MAGA Republicans. That's where the people are. A CBS poll also found that 75% of Americans don't think the administration is focused enough on lowering costs. Well, lowering health care premiums would be one of the very best ways to lower costs, because those costs are going through the roof. Many estimates show the average American would pay $1,000 more for health care. Listen to this. If you're a couple, 55-year-old couple who makes $80,000 a year, your premiums could go up $25,000 a year. How is anyone going to deal with that issue? Why is Johnson waiting? But yet again, Speaker Johnson and MAGA Republicans continue to lie and change the subject. Donald Trump does the same thing. The Speaker today once again lied that Democrats' proposal would provide health care benefits to undocumented immigrants. He even cited a page number and section within our proposal he says supposedly proves the point. Of course our proposal doesn't say that. As the Sunday show talk commentators Johnson sent down with this weekend pointed out, and he had no real rebuttal, saying that Democrats' proposal provides health insurance to undocumented immigrants is plain and simple, a blatant lie. It was a lie yesterday, it's a lie today, it'll be a lie tomorrow. Nothing in our proposal, not even the page the Speaker keeps citing as changes that, as fact checkers have repeatedly pointed out, independent fact checkers, not Democrats, not Republicans, just experts. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for Medicaid, Medicare, or ACA credits under current law or under the Democratic continuing resolution proposal. It's been the law for decades. Instead, here's what Democrats want to do. We want to reverse the devastating cuts to American health care that Republicans passed in their big, ugly bill. We want to extend the ACA tax credits that lower costs for eligible Americans. These are the plain facts. But Speaker Johnson and Republicans don't want to deal with the facts. They don't want to talk about health care because they know the American people are appalled by their health care policies. So instead, they lie, change the subject. And Speaker Johnson and the House Republicans would rather duck out of town than come into session and do their jobs. You know, when Leader Jeffries and I met with the President, he, of all people, seemed at least to somewhat appreciate the immense harm of letting these ACA credits expire. Of course, we had to walk the President through it first because it seemed he had no clue of the crisis before our meeting. But frankly, what should happen now is this. The President should lean on Speaker Johnson to relent on his extreme refusal to negotiate. It's not a sustainable position for the Speaker to literally shut the entire House down and not do anything to solve this crisis. Again, why wait? Democrats are ready to solve this now. We urge Donald Trump to get Speaker Johnson and our Republican colleagues to come to the table with Senator Jeffries and I, negotiate and address this problem and fix it once and for all. I yield the floor.
President, it's very obvious that Democrats are losing the Schumer shutdown. Even their media allies are turning against them. Here's an editorial from today's Washington Post. The headline is, "The Shutdown Conversation No One Wants." The Washington Post editorial board today wrote this, quote, "Democrats have demanded that Republicans agree to extend the COVID-era insurance subsidies without proposing any way to pay for it." They go on to say the Congressional Budget Office estimates that it would cost $350 billion over the next decade. Now, that's the Washington Post talking, not Republicans. So it's no surprise that Democrats are avoiding this conversation. Obamacare is broken, Obamacare is a failure, and now Democrats are holding the American people hostage to prop it up. The Biden bonus COVID payments are a bait and switch. Democrats created them in 2021. They did it as a temporary COVID program. They extended them temporarily to 2022. They set an end date from this year when they extended them once again. Now these same Democrats are demanding that they become permanent at a cost of $350 billion. It's unacceptable. This is a system that is riddled with waste, with fraud, abuse, and corruption. Big insurance companies are rewarded with direct payments from the federal government to the insurance companies. Hardworking taxpayers are left holding the bill. Many of these policies, there are no premiums, no deductibles, no income limit, no accountability. Even families making $500,000 a year, they still qualify for these Biden bonus COVID payments. This is reckless, permanent new spending. The American people can't afford it. The American people know it. And even the Washington Post knows it and has reported on it today. Democrats lost the election, they've lost their media allies, and now they have lost the argument. Mr. President, on a related matter, here we are, day 6 of the Schumer shutdown. Senate Democrats have now voted 4 separate times to keep our government closed. Radical Democrats are shutting down the government with an outlandish list of demands, and you've seen them, Mr. President. Included in that list is giving free health care to illegal immigrants. When the interests of Americans and illegal immigrants collide, Democrats always seek to benefit the latter at the expense of the former. Think back to the last Democrat primary for president back in June of 2019 when they were having a big debate on live television. There were so many candidates that they actually had to do it 2 separate nights to get them all on the stage. Every running candidate for president was asked in that one debate if their platform would give free health care to illegal immigrants. Every single Democrat candidate on the debate stage that night raised their hand and said yes. Every one of them promised to give free health care to illegal immigrants. Senator Bernie Sanders was on the stage that night. He raised his hand. Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York was on the stage that night. She raised her hand. Yes, free health care to illegal immigrants. Those are current members of the United States Senate who voted to shut the government down. They voted 4 times in the last 6 days. And it's more than talk. When Democrats get power, it's exactly what they're going to do. Look at California. In 2024, Governor Gavin Newsom expanded state-sponsored health care to illegal immigrants. He actually bragged about it. So there's no hiding from this. 1 year later, the Los Angeles Times reported that by doing this, costs had tripled. There was a headline dated March 13th of this year. It says, "Cost of undocumented health care in California is billions over estimates." They go on to say, pressuring Democrats to consider cuts. Instead of $3 billion a year, in the California health care system costs taxpayers $9.5 billion by providing health care to illegal immigrants. California financed its health care for illegal immigrants through a money laundering scheme aimed at the federal government. They used it to increase the state's Medicaid payments from the federal government directly to the state of California. This is money vacuumed away from hardworking Americans and from the vulnerable people in this country, our friends and neighbors who need Medicaid the most. What did California do with it? They used it for illegal immigrants, not for U.S. citizens. President Joe Biden and the Democrats, they went even further. Apparently they weren't liberal enough in doing that. Joe Biden created multiple illegal parole programs when he was president. It was a blatant attempt at amnesty by the sleight of hand. Parole is supposed to be rare, it's supposed to be temporary, and it's supposed to be case by case. And Mr. President, I'm talking about the flood of illegal immigrants that have come into this country across our southern border. People saw them on television. Joe Biden abused presidential parole authority and turned our law on its head. Democrats made non-citizens who were paroled eligible for free health care. Look no further than the illegal immigrant who murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley in Georgia. He crossed the border illegally in 2022. The Biden administration released him into our country instead of removing him. The Biden administration paroled him for what they claimed were, quote, urgent humanitarian reasons of significant public benefit. And then he murdered a nursing student. Joe Biden made Laken Riley's killer eligible for taxpayer-funded health care. Democrats even promised free health care as an enticement to attract illegal immigrants to our southern border. It was a magnet. Well, Democrats have now shut down the government. Why? To defend a system where Laken Riley's killer can get taxpayer-funded free health care. That's who they are. That's their beliefs. That's their commitment, not to the American people, but to the illegal immigrants. Well, Republicans closed the loophole, Mr. President. Our working families' tax cuts put in place strong eligibility verification requirements. So that person can't qualify anymore, or anyone like them. It also ended the gimmicks that allowed California to fund health care for illegal immigrants through higher federal Medicaid payments, the way they siphon money from the federal government into California to pay for illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, what we've seen is President Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem rightfully terminated all of these Joe Biden categorical parole programs. He should have never let him in the first place. Now we have terminated him. And the Supreme Court was called into play in an action here. The Supreme Court upheld this decision by the Trump administration after several rounds of left-wing lawfare. President Trump is securing our border. He's putting American citizens first, not illegal immigrants. That's the difference between our parties. Democrats want to undo all of that. That's why they're holding the nation hostage by shutting down the government. That's what this fight is all about. Let's be clear. By shutting down the government, Democrats are putting illegal immigrants ahead of American citizens, ahead of our veterans, ahead of our military, ahead of our seniors, ahead of our children. It is reckless, it's radical, and it is wrong. It's time for it to end. So today, Mr. President, the Senate's going to vote for a fifth time on our bipartisan continuing resolution, and we want to reopen government. It passed the House with bipartisan support. The Senate this evening will have a simple choice once again. Vote to reopen the government and put America first and Americans first, or vote with Senator Schumer to put illegal immigrants ahead of the American people. Voting with Chuck Schumer tonight will keep the government closed. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsor-Brooks.
President.
The Democratic Whip.
Are we in a quorum call?
We are not.
Thank you, Madam President.
We are.
I ask consent that quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, on Friday, in the midst of a Republican-led government shutdown, President Trump revealed his priorities. It isn't to protect the health care, the health insurance of millions of Americans who are about to lose their insurance or see premiums skyrocket. Nope, that's not it. The President's priority: to deploy militarized immigration agents and National Guard troops to more American cities. Why? Purely for political theater and to advance his extreme agenda. In the early morning hours of Tuesday last week, while this government barreled toward a shutdown, President Donald Trump launched a military law enforcement assault on the city of Chicago. In the city's South Side neighborhood, hundreds of federal agents, many hiding their faces with masks, repelled from Black Hawk helicopters, darted out of disguised moving trucks, armed with military-grade weapons, to descend on a targeted apartment building in the city of Chicago. They swarmed through the building, knocking down doors, tearing up homes. And it appears that these agents knew nothing in advance about the residents whose homes they were destroying. In fact, in the dead of night, federal agents reportedly started checking on the residents as they brought them out of the building. Residents that included American citizens and children. They checked on them to see if maybe they had an outstanding warrant for their arrest or were undocumented. Picture this, if you will. You're with your family in an apartment building, a helicopter lands on the roof, federal agents with masks on batter down your doors, drag you and your children out of their beds into the street, and start an interrogation as to whether there's any undocumented person present. America. Many were yanked from their homes and their beds and detained shirtless and without clothing. Some were detained using zip ties, including children. Here's what one witness to the event said. Kids were crying, people were screaming, they looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I saw the little girl come around the corner because they were bringing the kids down too. They had them zip-tied together. In the middle of the night in the city of Chicago, an assault on an apartment building in America. The witness continued, one of the agents laughed out loud. He said, F them kids. 4 U.S. citizen kids with undocumented parents were separated from their parents who were taken into custody. Secretary Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security posted to social media a highly produced video of the raid, her version of the story, because that's all this is to them, a promotional video, political theater. The human toll must be immense. What if it was your child? Yanked out of his bed in the middle of the night, hands zip-tied behind him, brought down with few, if any, clothes on, standing in the street while all this is happening, watching his parents be arrested in America. In another case, ICE agents fired a pepper ball into CBS Chicago reporter Azo Rezi's car. What was her crime? Driving by the Broadview ICE facility to report on the protests there. It's known in the Constitution as freedom of the press. Doesn't seem to impress Kristi Noem. I've long fought for humane reforms to our immigration system on a bipartisan basis and evidence-based ways to reduce crime in our cities. If the president is serious about fixing our immigration system, or lowering crime in our communities, I'm all in. But sending in militarized federal immigration agents and National Guard troops to terrorize Chicago or any American community in any state is not the American way. Excuse me. These actions have accomplished what I believe is the president's true intention here: spreading fear in America, especially among immigrant communities. And he's been very successful. I go to these communities virtually every weekend when I return back to Illinois. I meet with the people who live there. They are scared to death. People who have been here for years, no criminal record, no reason to be removed, working and paying taxes, are afraid to shop and afraid to go to church. Last week on the floor, I warned about this, and I have for some time now. The president's decision to unleash military personnel against the city of Chicago and American communities is another pillar in his master plan to weaponize the federal government against those he views as the enemy within. Where did that phrase come from? From the mouth of the President of the United States speaking to the military leaders of the United States. He told them to be fearful of the enemy within and to use American cities as their training ground. Think of that. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller ranted to law enforcement agents on the eve of their Memphis deployment that they were, quote, being unleashed. Stephen Miller's word, unleashed. Does that sound like law and order? Does that sound like the rule of law? Unleashed. In addition to Memphis and Chicago, this president has targeted cities like Los Angeles and Portland. Reckless immigration raids, unnecessary deployment of military power over the objection of state and local officials. I fear these disturbing developments are the latest indicators that we are on a slippery slope into control by the Trump regime. The president is attempting to overturn the Department of Justice, the FBI, ICE, and the military into his own personal police force. This not only erodes trust between communities and the people tasked with protecting them, it is an existential threat to civil liberty, the rule of law, and the core values of who we are as Americans. This is what's at stake, and this is a defining moment we're in. In times like these, you have a choice. You can stand up and speak out, or you can be silent, or maybe you could cheer. It's your choice as Americans. But think about it if it was your family, in the middle of the night, people crashing through the doors, yanking you and your children out of bed into the street, arresting people. Remember what the goal was when we got started with this? The president made it very clear. We were after undocumented people, illegal people in the United States who were rapists, murderers, terrorists, criminally insane, and child predators. The president was very explicit. These are the people we're going after. We'll tell you their names as we arrest them. So what percentage of those that's been arrested with this mass deportation, detained by ICE, what percentage of them have a criminal record? Fewer than 30%. By a 2-to-1 margin, innocent people are being dragged into this. In the middle of the night in the city of Chicago in an apartment building. Children are being treated like pawns in the Trump political game. Today, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul filed a lawsuit to block the administration's unconstitutional attempt to deploy troops in Illinois. I joined with all my Democratic colleagues in the Illinois delegation, calling on the president to immediately rescind this unnecessary and dangerous deployment of the military to Illinois. I've spoken personally to the governor of our state, J.B. Pritzker, several times this weekend as the story developed. He did not ask for the National Guard troops to be sent in from Texas or any place. There is no need for it. to either protect federal facilities or to protect the people living in the city of Chicago. I'm going to continue as ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee speaking out. And I appeal to my Republican colleagues who are watching this in silence. It could be you. You could have an opportunity soon for the president to send in troops. It's not likely as much from the Republican side. Very few of their communities have been targeted. But if you happen to live in a state that didn't vote for Donald Trump, buckle up. He's coming down on you, whether it's California, Oregon, or Illinois. I'll close with this. At that Tuesday morning raid, videos taking at the scenes showed detained immigrants being held in an adjacent parking lot. Across the street, a woman is seen heard calling out in broken Spanish, "I'll always love you." Where is the humanity in tearing families apart? If there is a dangerous person, for God's sake, put them in a separate category. But families that are doing their best to get by and struggle, work and pay taxes, and have children who are citizens of the United States should never be treated like this in America. In an interview recently, Secretary Noem was quoted as saying, "This country is a country of laws. If you don't like the laws, go change them. We are enforcing them." She said that is sending a message to the whole world. The Secretary is right. The administration certainly sent a message in Chicago on Tuesday night, a shameful message, one that shouldn't be part of American history. Terrorizing families with midnight raids and troops in our streets is writing a shameful chapter in our nation's history. This is going to make America great again. President Trump is not intent on fighting crime. He is intent on spreading fear, and in doing so, he is destroying the values which define us as Americans. I yield the floor.
I think a lot of good things could happen, and that could also pertain to health. It's a very big, we wasted a lot, so to speak, and a very big. Thank you very much, everybody. We have a very big signing today having to do with Alaska, a place that I'm very familiar with. And we're making it greater, bigger, more powerful, and job producing. It's an economic gold mine, so to speak. And I signed this years ago, and Biden unsigned it for me. This was something that should have been long operating and making billions of dollars for our country, supplying a lot of energy and minerals and everything else that we're talking about. And they undid it and wasted a lot of time and a lot of money and effort. And now we're starting again, and this time we have plenty of time to get it done, and it's going to be done properly. I'd like to ask the Department of Interior head, who has done a fantastic job, thank them to say a few words about it. And we'll go to Chris after you, and anybody else that wants to say something. It's a very powerful deal, very, very big deal from the standpoint of minerals and energy. So thank you all for being here. Doug, please go ahead.
Well, thank you, President Trump. Yesterday is a historic day. President Trump, as he promised when he was running in the election, to the American people,
The senator from Texas.
President, we on a phone call?
We are not.
potential of this country. He was going to unlock America's mineral wealth. He was going
Madam
to
President,
generate
it's been
returns
6
for American
days
people, and he was going to
Senate
support
Senate
people
Democrats
who
have shut down the
supply
federal
chains
government.
for minerals for our country.
They did that by blocking
On
a
day
clean,
one,
continuing
signed
resolution, as
very
it's called
important
around here, a
executive order
stopgap
unleashing the
spending
last
bill
extraordinary resource
that would take us to November
and
the
this is part of the
21st
continuation. There's
to
a
provide
number of
enough
things
time to
already
try to
happened
work out
that are moving forward
appropriations bills for
the
full
big
year
milestones
funding,
today.
which
In
are
reversing
highly
this
preferable
binary
to simply
decision about the
operating on autopilot,
This is a 200
as a continuing resolution would do. And this has already passed the House of Representatives. So all we need to do to reopen the government is for 5 Democrats to join 3 other Democrats and Republicans to vote to reopen the government, not forever, but for the next 9 weeks or so.
to defense, to industry moving forward.
Let's
today.
not
Just
forget
take
that it
copper
was
alone.
partisan
This
antics
is one of the richest
on their
copper
part that have brought us where we are today. We've now voted not just once, but 4 times on the House passed clean government funding bill. While 3 Democrats have seen the light, as I said earlier, have joined Republicans in voting for a clean continuing resolution, they have routinely done this in the past. When President Biden was in office, when Chuck Schumer was the majority leader, we voted for, I think, 13 separate continuing resolutions. But so far, they've refused to do so out of pure spite and partisanship. Government shutdowns have unfortunately become far too common in Washington, but I think it's important to take a minute to consider the impacts, the real-world impacts on our constituents back home. Since Texas is obviously one of the largest states in the country, it will suffer an outsized impact. The Lone Star State is home to about 130,000 federal
civilian employees. This number includes 33,000 who work with the Veterans Health Administration. These are the folks who serve our veterans, who we are duty-bound and obligated, morally obligated to support. But 33,000 of them will be negatively impacted by this shutdown, already have been. Almost 18,000 of these employees work for, of these total number, work for U.S. Customs and Border Protection. These are the folks that stop illegal drugs from entering in the country and make sure that illegal aliens don't make their way into the country, as we've seen during the last 4 years. Close to 6,000 Texans work for the Transportation Security Administration. The folks that you encounter at airports and various different ports that help manage the flow of travelers going to and from security screenings before they board flights. Finally, the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center in Texas has 3,000 employees, but is expected to furlough about 70% of them due to the lapse in federal funding. What happens to these federal employees during a government shutdown? Well, the most dramatic thing that happens to them is they don't get paid. Even those that are deemed essential and who have to work, they work without pay, just as those who are furloughed work without pay. Now, before I came to the floor, I looked up a statistic, and I think it sounds about right, that 6 out of 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And while it may be okay for members of Congress, particularly wealthy members of Congress who don't have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck, to miss a paycheck, it's catastrophic to many, many Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, who don't have adequate savings to help them weather a government shutdown. And while each of these categories receive back pay, once the government's reopened, they cannot receive a paycheck during the shutdown. This is extraordinarily unfair to these government employees who, through no fault of their own, are being denied the pay that they have earned. Now, this will have a particularly serious impact on our military and Department of Homeland Security personnel, many of whom have been designated as accepted, or we used to say some were essential employees, but they have to stay on the job, in other words. But they don't get paid either. Texas has 15 active duty military installations where personnel are required to continue reporting for duty throughout the shutdown. These active duty personnel will not be paid again until a final funding deal is reached. And right now, we don't know how long this is going to go on.
It's a great deal for you.
I know most of us come to the floor and express our gratitude, profound gratitude to our men and women in uniform and their families that serve our country and keep us safe. But this strikes me as a very bad way to say thank you to them by saying, yes, you have to continue to work, but no, you're not going to be paid. So Senate Democrats apparently have made that calculation. This is how they thank them, by cutting off their pay, denying them their livelihood, and holding them hostage over petty partisan demands. In addition to active duty military personnel, I mentioned Customs and Border Protection. All of them are expected to continue reporting for duty day in and day out during the government shutdown. Our Border Patrol agents who bore the brunt of Biden's open border policies, working hundreds of hours in some of the harshest of conditions, and have processed millions of illegal aliens flooding into the United States courtesy of President Biden. Now we're telling them, or at least Senate Democrats are telling them, you're not going to get paid. This is how they have chosen to reward these patriotic men and women who keep our borders secure by shutting down the government and denying them their paycheck.
A pilot road. We'll build a single lane gravel road through the
And
full
why
duration of it.
do Senate Democrats think this is so important? Well, they've told us what their demands are, what the ransom that they are demanding. They want us to wipe out a $50 billion rural hospital stabilization fund that was part of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Many of us represent rural states that have large rural areas, and access to health care is a big problem. And we had tried to address that problem by providing a significant fund, this Rural Hospital Stabilization Fund, to help address those concerns. But Democrats want to take that away. We also said in the One Big Beautiful Bill, no money can go to provide health care for illegal aliens.
They've all been good, Caitlin.
Access to free government services is one of the magnets that draw people to come to our country in the first place. This is one of the so-called pull factors that the Border Patrol talks about. We said no more.
Very important.
No more free health care for illegal aliens, which is a magnet for people to enter the country the wrong way, not the right way. And Democrats want to restore that free health care to illegal aliens as part of their demands for reopening the government.
We don't want to give
Madam President, this is simply unconscionable, but it is also profoundly dumb.
In fact, numbers we just
shut down the government,
zero. So we have
solves
zero
nothing.
for 4 months in a row.
We've been through, we've seen this movie before.
That's a pretty good
and
number.
what happens when you reopen the government, the same problem,
we went from millions
the same
of people
issues
to zero,
that cause you to shut down the government are there staring you in the face.
The way you stop them is
so
not
these
to give
shutdowns
away, not
solve
to announce
nothing.
that you're giving everybody free health care.
I don't know how.
But what that does is
Senate Democrats can continue voting against the clean government funding bill,
unable to get good health care,
like they themselves have previously supported on a routine basis, knowing that the men and women who keep them and us safe
but things are a
are
lot of
working
things
for
are
free
going on in that
without a paycheck.
Hamas.
For no other reason that
negotiations that we have going on
that
right
Senate
now.
Democrats refuse to give up on their partisan pipe dreams.
That could lead to very good things. And
FEMA
I'm talking about good things with regard
Federal
to health
Emergency Management Agency, who are first responders in the case of natural disaster, are also expected to continue to be working without pay during hurricane season, no less.
If we made the
In addition to law enforcement and emergency personnel, the government shutdown affects all Americans one way or the other. It affects travel, it affects access to public lands.
And we can have a much
TSA
better
workers and
healthcare
air
than we
traffic
have right
controllers
now.
have to keep
And
working.
we're talking to them.
And these are the people that make sure our
this has also been going on, not for 3,000
airlines
years,
operate
but it's
safely
been
and
going
on
for a
time.
long time. But yeah, we're talking to them.
But they have to work without pay.
I'd like to see
The hiring and training of any new air traffic controllers, which we know is a real problem and an important issue, all that will stop during the time the federal government shut down. No new hiring of new personnel to help make our air traffic safe. All of this because Senate Democrats can't work in a bipartisan manner to keep government open even for a few weeks.
Because I think a lot of good things are going to happen. That's all I can say. I mean,
government shutdown also impacts our national parks
and
federal lands. Texas boasts 3.2 million acres of federally operated public lands, including Big Bend National Park, Guadalupe Mountains National Park, and Padre Island National Seashore. National parks face a partial shutdown, meaning that some areas, such as open-air sites, will remain open to the public, but buildings that require staffing, like museums, will have to close.
So when you look at Chicago, they've had probably 50
Madam President,
murders in the last 6 or 7 months.
my constituents,
many people shot.
roughly 32 million
30,
Americans,
40, 50
like
people
all
shot.
Americans
die
have
if
to
they've been
pay the
shot. It's
price
like a war
because of
zone.
this completely
And then I
unnecessary
listen to the governor and the
government
mayor get up and
shutdown.
say how
And
they
the
have it under
outrageous
control. They don't.
demands
It's probably worse
Democrats
than almost
are
any
making
city
to reopen.
in the world. You could go to Afghanistan. You can go
All
to a
of
lot
this
different
lies
places,
squarely
and
at their
They
feet.
probably marvel at how much crime we have. Then
You know, I
go to
was
Memphis,
reflecting
where we
over
are
the
right
weekend.
Now,
After the last time
it's
we voted to reopen the
just
government,
like in
Democrats
Washington-
voted no.
Washington, D.C. right now, you people know
How
better
this
than
must
I do,
reflect
'cause you
on
have
the
to live
United
right
States
inside, and so
in the
many
eyes of the
press have
world.
come to me, they've said, I can't believe it.
You know, I
It's
think
changed so
most
much. We have a
countries,
safe
most
city in
people around the
Washington.
world look
Memphis
at the
will very
United
soon have a
States
safe city. Chicago
as
can be very, very
sort
safe.
of that
It's going to be very safe.
city on the
But
hill.
Chicago is going to be very safe. And you
The
say,
place where they would like to
why is
live,
it that a governor
or at least
wouldn't
visit,
accept free
because
help
we have
from
the
regardless,
largest,
I mean, whether
most
it's,
successfully
National
functioning
Guard or the
democracy
military or anybody.
in the
I
world,
mean, if
with
women
high standards
raped
of living,
and beaten and knocked
the
to hell,
opportunity
and
for people
the
to
same
work
with
hard,
men, where they're being shot all over the place in large
provide
numbers.
for their family,
I mean, we
start
had
a business,
week in Chicago
achieve
where
their
11
dreams.
people were murdered and 38 people
It
were
is
shot.
profoundly embarrassing.
And then we
I
have
think
a
it
governor
should be
get up and say,
embarrassing
oh, it's safe. We can
to
handle
all
it. He
members
can't
of
handle it.
Congress that
He's
we
an
simply
incompetent guy.
cannot
That's why
get
they
our
threw him out
act
of the
together
family business.
enough
They threw him out. I
to
knew
fund
the
the
family
government
business
for
very
the
well.
next few weeks,
And they threw him out.
while
And now
these
he's the governor.
negotiations
And
over
he should say,
long-term
we'd love
appropriations
to have
bills
a
are
safer
occurring.
place. Chicago's a great city.
This
potentially.
kind of
And I told you,
dysfunction
the head of the
is
Union
completely
Pacific Railroad said, sir, save
unworthy
Chicago. It's a great city. It's going to be lost if you don't do
what
it.
has
We have no choice but to
been
do
known,
this.
what
And
it used to be
when
known as
judges
the
give
world's
us rulings that,
greatest deliberative body.
you don't have to do it. Portland is
The
on
unfortunate
fire.
reality is it
Portland's
doesn't
been
have
on
to be
fire
this
for
way.
years. And
Many of our
not so much
Democratic
saving it.
friends
We
have
to
from time
save
to time
something else
talked
because I
about
think
various
that's all
things being a
insurrection. I
threat
really
to
think that's
democracy.
really criminal
Well,
insurrection.
being
So I appreciate
unable
the
to
question.
pass
These are
a
unsafe
bill
places.
to
We're gonna
fund
make
the
them
government
safe.
to keep the
So
lights
you
on
see
and
what's
keep
going on
people,
in Memphis.
government employees paid,
Not pretty.
that
but you know
strikes
what? We're
me
doing a pretty job because
as a
it's
threat
going to be a very safe
to our
place in a little
democracy.
while. And the people of Memphis are so happy that we're there. And
Senate
the people of
Democrats have long
Chicago-
preached the
So you
virtues
have,
of bipartisanship,
black women
especially when it comes to
with
avoiding
MAGA
government
hats on
shutdown.
in Chicago. All
And in the
over
past,
place.
they've wagged
They want
their finger.
the guard to come in.
We've
or
seen it
they
all
don't
on
care who
social
comes in.
media and on
They
cable
just want to be
TV.
safe.
They've said
And they really don't
shutdowns
care.
are
You know, there was
idiocy.
one woman, and she was great
That's
today.
what
She
the
said, you know what?
Democratic leader
I don't
said
care if
on
it's the
TV
National Guard,
years
the Army,
ago when the shoe
Marines,
was on
the
the
Air
other foot.
Force.
He said it's
I
an
don't care
idiocy.
who comes in as long as we're
Well, I
safe.
agree with him.
And that's the way
It was
most of the
idiocy
public
then,
feels.
and it's
we're gonna
idiocy
make
now.
Chicago really great again, and we're going to stop
American
this crap.
people
Then
may
we're
not
gonna go to
understand
another
the
one,
ins
and we're
and
gonna go
ins and
city by
outs
city. We're going to have
of what
safe
goes on
cities.
here, but what they can
And it was
smell
so great
from
that
a
we
mile
started
away
with our nation's
is
capital,
hypocrisy.
one of the worst. I
And
mean,
that's
so
all
many
this is.
people
Sheer
every week.
hypocrisy.
Somebody was killed. They'd come from Iowa. They'd come from Indiana. They want to see the Jefferson Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial.
All our colleagues
They
need to
want to see
do
something,
when we
and
vote
they
here shortly
get
is to
shot.
vote for a clean,
They call their
continuing
parents, "I'm sorry, but
resolution.
your son is dead."
And all of this can be
And they go,
reversed.
"What do you mean he's
And we
dead?
can get
Came
back to the
Washington, D.C. Not anymore. That's not
working
happening
together to
anymore.
try to
We have
solve
a
some of
safe
the issues that
place. We
I
have a
know
safe capital.
they care about
It's
as well.
safe as
We
have
all care about
probably
access
almost
to
just
health
about
care.
in the country. And if you look back 6
And
months
that's
ago,
one of the
7 months
items
ago,
that
this
we
was a
have to
death
address
trap.
certainly
You
before
look
the
back
end of
during
the year with
Biden,
the
I mean,
expiring of
what
certain
they did, how badly
provisions,
they
certain
managed
subsidies
things.
for the
And
Affordable Care Act.
Almost
And
all
we're
of these
happy to
cities,
have that
most of these cities
conversation.
are Democrat
And we
run.
will have that
And we don't care,
conversation.
Democrat,
But not while the
Republican,
government
we're
shut
gonna make
down.
them safe. So we have to save Chicago. It's very important.
So the
And
good
you
news
can't have a
is,
governor getting up and
well,
saying
let
it's
me
good
back
when
up and
11
say the
people were
bad
shot
news is government
over a
shut
weekend.
down. The good news is that can end today,
What?
this afternoon.
Well, I do it if it was
Democrats
necessary.
have an
So far, it
opportunity
hasn't
to
been
vote with
necessary.
Republicans
We
to
have an insurrection
pass a
act for
clean,
reason.
continuing
If I
resolution,
had to enact it,
as
I'd
they
do-
have
I'd
at
do
many
that.
times
If
in the
people were being
past.
killed and
So,
courts were holding
I hope
us
we
up,
can
or
all
governors or mayors
join
were holding
arms
us
and
up.
say,
Sure,
let's
I'd
put
do
an
that.
end to
I
this
want to make sure that
nonsense
people aren't killed. We
and
have
pass
to make
this
sure that our
legislation
cities are safe.
on what will now be
And
the
it's
fifth
turning out, and we
opportunity.
started with D.C.
The American people
It's
are
been so
counting on us.
successful. Think of it.
And we
People
shouldn't
wouldn't
let
go to
them down.
restaurants. The restaurants were closing. We were losing a lot of restaurants, as you
Madam
all
President, I
know.
yield the floor.
And now restaurants are opening and they're thriving. And I went 2 weeks ago and it was great. I'm going to go again. I felt very safe, very safe. Forgetting about
Madam President?
guards and Secret
Senator
Service.
from New
and
Jersey.
I would have gone. It would have been very safe.
Madam President, I asked
DC is a great
people
and
back
look
home
at
in
the
New Jersey how they
cleanliness of
felt
DC.
about
Look at
this
how it's
moment
clean.
in our country.
You don't have
And what I heard
tents all over the place. We had
falls
parks
into
where
this
you couldn't
category,
even walk
saying that they
through the park.
said that they
People
felt
in-
like
from
things are
tents,
spinning out of
and they were
control.
violent people. Some of these
That
people were
every
violent
day
people.
feels
We
like
have
a new
great,
crisis.
safe capital
Every
again.
day, the
And if you
anxiety
look at it in
grows
6 months
deeper.
From now, it'll be the most
Every day it
beautiful
seems like we move
anywhere in the world.
further
It's being
from a
cleaned,
solution.
the graffiti's
And in
all
order
gone
to find a
now.
solution to
The
this
tents
moment,
are
we
all
need
gone.
to understand the problem.
We have a capital.
The problem that we
can be proud of,
face,
but it'll only
that I
get
want to
better with
talk
time.
about with you today, is that we have a government that has been hijacked at the highest levels by people who act like mob bosses. Now I get it. I'm from Jersey. We know a thing or two about mob bosses. But I want to be clear. This isn't pulling off a Lufthansa heist or having members of your crew get lost in the Pine Barrens. This is about a Trump administration that is using the same tactics we've seen time and time again in movies and in real life. Extortion, corruption, intimidation, and violence. All of these things that have become hallmarks of the Trump presidency. And I bring them up today, 6 days into a government shutdown, because this is what the Trump administration is focused on. The Trump administration is not focused on lowering your costs. If they were, they'd be here at the Capitol today working to find a way to lower health care costs, as we're about to see them spike for millions of Americans, potentially kicking large numbers off their coverage who can't afford it.
No longer living.
The Trump administration is not focused on creating jobs or creating economic opportunities. If they were, they'd be here in both the Senate and the House today, working to make sure that we're investing in the kinds of things only government can provide. Things that make us more competitive, more innovative, more prosperous.
They want that.
The Trump administration is certainly not focused on keeping you and your family safer. If they were, they'd be here at the Capitol today, in both chambers, working to get our troops paid or to address the real challenges at home and abroad that threaten our security. Instead, this administration, the leaders here in this Capitol have shut down this government so they can focus on the things that they want, to use government to further corruption so that they can funnel money to their billionaire donors, to use government as a tool to extort the American people to bend to their will, to weaponize government to intimidate Americans through violence who dare oppose their actions by even just speaking out. Corruption, extortion, and intimidation through violence. This is how the Trump administration wants to use your government against you. Now, like every great mob movie, it's not just about the boss who plays a critical role. For every Don Corleone, there's a Tom Hagen and a Luca Brasi. Donald Trump plays the role of the mob boss, but it's his henchmen who are really running the show. Russell Vought and Stephen Miller, they're not public servants. Public servants, they work to serve the public. They work towards a public good. Russ Vought and Stephen Miller are straight out of Scorsese. These two men are running an operation on corruption, extortion, and intimidation that would make Al Capone jealous. Let's start with Russ Vought. Russ Vaught's entire existence, his reason for being, is to cut every program the American people can possibly rely on, so that the billionaires who fund his work can get another tax cut. Money goes to him. Money goes back to them. None of it goes to you. Pure corruption. But it's not enough for Russ Vought to just funnel billions to his backers. He has to take from you just to remind you of his power, just to bring you to heel. That's why last week he announced that he was freezing $18 billion for critical infrastructure projects in New York and New Jersey. One of them is the Hudson Tunnel Project, which is critical to our region's economy. In fact, when I asked Secretary Duffy about this at his confirmation hearing, he said it was a project of national importance, critical for our nation, not just our region. It's essential to our pursuit to bring infrastructure into the 21st century, and it supports tens of thousands of jobs. But Russell Vought decided to freeze that money out of nothing but political retribution. He decided to freeze this money because he thinks he can punish the people of New Jersey for demanding the government actually work for them, for demanding that we actually work to lower costs. It doesn't just stop at New Jersey. He froze billions in dollars for transit projects in Chicago. more than $8 billion in Department of Energy projects in states across the country, just because those states voted for Democrats in the last election. Didn't try to stop those exact types of projects in states that voted for Donald Trump in the last election. Russell Vought acts like a mob boss because he thinks he can use his levers of government to funnel money to his friends and take away your services when you've gotten out of line. Last week, I went to New Jersey for a day and heard from my constituents about how they're seeing this shutdown. And one woman said something that really stuck out to me. Because I asked her, if you had a chance to be able to say one thing to Donald Trump and these Republican negotiators, what would it be? And this was an independent voter. She said, I would want to tell them that it's our money. It's the American people's money, not Trump's personal bank account. She's absolutely right. This isn't Russell Vought's money to take away whenever he pleases. We've seen him do that through something called rescissions, something that completely ignores the framework our founding fathers put in place nearly 250 years ago. That Congress, on the behalf of you, the people, decide how your money is spent. And when that decision is made on behalf of you, your will, your money can't be overturned and taken away simply because a single bureaucratic mob boss decides to exercise his power. It's not just taking money away. We need to remember that this isn't Russ Vought's money to use as a tool to extort his imagined enemies into following his orders. We need to remember that this is your money, it's your government, and it should work for you. But right now, the Trump administration isn't working for you. It's working to grow and consolidate its own power. And that brings us to our second mob boss, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller thinks he's the enforcer. He thinks it's his job to defeat Donald Trump's enemies. And again, like Russell Vought, he doesn't seem to see himself as a public servant. He's not even here to make your family safer or to protect your country. Let's look at how Stephen Miller operates as a mob boss. Stephen Miller and this administration have taken the issue of our broken immigration system, and instead of working to actually fix it, they've used it as an excuse to rapidly militarize parts of our government and deploy them against our own people in our own cities, in our own towns. It starts with going after criminals, people who should actually be sought after and detained, but that's not where it stops. We have seen thousands of American service members sent into American cities. We have as many National Guard, we have as many Americans in uniform here in Washington, D.C. than we do in Iraq. We have seen American weapons of war, including Black Hawk helicopters, used against Americans in places like Chicago. And we have seen Miller and other members of this administration effectively call anyone who simply disagrees with them terrorists, including the Democratic Party, while calling for the use of state power to dismantle them. Now, I want to reflect on that phrase for a moment, state power. Stephen Miller isn't talking about using the power of our government to make your lives better or work for you. He's not talking about using it to make your neighborhoods safer. He's talking about using it against you if you get out of line. He's talking about using it against anyone who disagrees with this administration, for anyone who stands in their way. We know that because Donald Trump has basically told us so. He told a room of all of his nation's top military officials, seemingly convened only to show he had the power to do so, that they should prepare for a, quote, war from within. He told the leaders of the most powerful military in the history of the world to prepare to battle the, quote, enemy from within. That means Americans at home. And again, we know that because Donald Trump has said it. In the same convening, he said he wants to use American cities as training grounds for the military. American cities, places where we live, where we go to work, where we bring our schools to our kids to school. That is where Donald Trump wants to exercise power over you. We have the finest military in the world. The purpose of that military is to defend our Constitution, to defend the American people, to deter our enemies and be prepared to fight them if necessary. The American people are not that enemy. And deploying our military in America's streets weakens our readiness to defend against real threats.
So
Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and this administration will keep finding new excuses to seize power and threaten to use it against you. In the words of a federal judge, one that Trump appointed, ours, quote, is a nation of constitutional law, not martial law. And the actions of the Trump administration, quote, risk blurring the lines between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation.
You mean she's no longer into the environment?
We are seeing this administration launch military strikes against individuals from Venezuela with no legal authorization or justification. We're seeing this administration, Mr. Miller specifically, call legal decisions that he doesn't like, quote, an organized terrorist attack. We're seeing this administration use intimidation and violence as tools not to make us safer, as if that was ever acceptable, but to make us submit. At the end of the day, that is this administration's aim.
Who are we talking about?
Submission. Like every mob boss, they want you to kiss the ring. They want your loyalty. But not just that, they want your fealty.
Did they reject that?
And the things they don't understand is that Americans don't bend the knee. We don't kiss the ring. We don't pledge loyalty to a boss. This is the people's government. It's not a tool for corruption. It's not a tool for extortion. It's not a tool for intimidation and violence. It is a tool for growing opportunity and prosperity. It is a tool for providing security and freedom. And it's a tool for everyone, not just the bosses. So yes, we need to work to reopen our government. And in doing so, we need to make sure that people don't drown under a wave of rising healthcare costs. But we can't lose sight that this isn't the only fight we've got in front of us. President Trump has handed power to Russ Vought and Stephen Miller, and they've used that power to take away your opportunities, your security, and your freedoms.
Where are they sending them?
When we reopen the government, we need to fight to make sure it's working.
That's been a horrible. This week they lost over 7,000 soldiers between the two of them. This is every week they're losing 7,000, 8,000, 5,000.
They have a range of like 1,500 miles or something, so they'd be able to.
No, I know. No, I would ask some questions. I want to see what's. I'm not looking to see. I'm not looking to see escalation.
Yes. And tomorrow you're meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister. What's on the agenda for that?
Well, I guess he's going to ask about tariffs because a lot of companies from Canada are moving into the United States. You know, everybody's moving back into the U.S. and he's probably going to be asking about tariffs. They're losing a lot of companies in Canada. They're coming into they left here. They left here 20 years ago when presidents that sat right at this desk weren't doing their job properly. They were probably good politicians, but they weren't good at business, and they allowed these companies to leave. And all they had to do is do what I'm doing right now. And, you know, I'm not saying it's the easiest thing to do, but it is. It's effective. We're a rich country again. We're a powerful country because, you know, I've ended 7 wars. At least half of them was because of my ability at trade and because of tariffs. If I didn't have tariffs to throw around a little bit, you would have at least 4 wars raging right now with thousands of people a day being killed that aren't happening. We've settled. You know, we settled 7. We're getting close to settling 8. That would be a big one. And that's something that could happen. But so I think he's coming probably to talk about tariffs because a lot of companies are leaving Canada to come into the U.S. And they're leaving Mexico. And by the way, they're leaving China. They're leaving all over the world to come into the U.S. Nobody's actually seen anything like it.
Would you shift your position on tariffs in response to whatever you
Well, I mean, look, my positions turned out to, everybody said I'm right. They find billions of dollars that they didn't even know they had. Recently, they said they found billions of dollars, and they couldn't understand. I said, check the tariff shelf. And they come in the next hour, and they said, sir, you're right. It was from the tariffs. We're a rich, really rich country again. But more importantly, maybe influence. If I didn't have the power of tariffs, you would have at least 4 of the 7 wars raging. I use tariffs to stop wars. If you look at India and Pakistan, they were ready to go at it. 7 planes we shot down. They were ready to go at it. And they're nuclear powers. And I don't want to say exactly what I said, but what I said was very effective. They stopped. And that was based on tariffs. It was based on trade. Tariffs are very important for the United States. We are a peacekeeper because of tariffs. Not only do we make, hundreds of billions of dollars, but we're a peacekeeper because of tariffs.
Mr. President. On the shutdown, Mr. President, the shutdown that occurred during your first term lasted 35 days.
Yeah.
How long do you expect this shutdown to go?
Well, you don't know. Look, I can say this, that it would have not happened except for the Democrats. The Democrats are very foolish. They've lost their way. And we have a new thing now when you look at, it's called crime. It's called absolute, as Biden would say, well, I won't say what he would have said. Remember what he said? It's a 3-letter word, no. Remember that one? Everyone's saying, what was that all about? He probably meant exclamation point or something after the word. But this is a 5-letter word, crime, C-R-I-M-E. And we want to put it out and are putting it out, and they don't. They don't seem to care about it, but they do care. I believe that Pritzker and this mayor of Chicago that like to say about they don't have it under control. Not only is it not under control, it's the opposite. And I believe they're afraid, they're scared for their lives. I believe that the Portland people are scared. You look at what's happened with Portland over the years, it's a burning hellhole. And then you have a that lost her way, that tries to pretend that like there's no problem. Actually, she's not even saying that. There's a huge problem in Portland. I'll tell you what the problem is, crime. Okay, crime. There's a huge problem in Chicago. It's called crime. And we want to put out the crime, and they want to inflame the crime. And why they want to, I don't know. But it could be that Pritzker is scared for his life. Yeah.
You placed that judge on the UN. Do you have an update on the investigation into what happened to you at the UN last month? And also, what's your message to Americans who are concerned about your and your family's safety as you're very out in the public attending?
Yeah, I am out there. There's no question about it. Well, at the UN, we had a problem with the teleprompter. We had another problem that nobody has actually talked about. The people in the room didn't hear my speech. Did you know that? The people in the room, they didn't have any loudspeakers, and they didn't hear my speech. And I thought I made a really good speech. I mean, considering I didn't have the use of teleprompter, which is unusual. But I made a speech. I could have walked off the stage. I guess most people, Doug, I think most people would have just said, we'll see you in about a half an hour, right? But, they obviously turned off I think they turned off the teleprompter, but there was a reason that it didn't work. I actually know the reason. They didn't let the teleprompter person into the room, okay, which is essentially the same thing. So I made a speech. It turned out to be a very good speech, got good reviews. I went out to the audience after the speech. I saw my wife. I said, how good was that speech? Was that unbelievable or what? She said, I didn't hear a word you said. I said, what do you mean? She was sitting in the front. I said, what do you mean? She said, you couldn't hear anything that you said. The speakers were turned off. So I think that's pretty bad stuff, right? Especially since we support most of the United Nations. And yet I still want to keep it in New York, because I think the United Nations has tremendous potential. If properly run, the United States has tremendous potential. But think of this. I settled 7 wars. I never spoke to the United Nations about it, not one of them. You look at, and those were wars that were raging a long time, and in many cases. And I settled 7. I never heard from the United. They didn't help me. They should be able to settle the wars. I shouldn't have to be settling the wars. Yeah, please.
I think last week you signed the security guarantees for Qatar.
Yeah.
Do you see any role for the Senate in that? Do they have to vote on that, or do you think?
Well, I wouldn't mind if they did. If they want to, they'd let me know. Nobody said that. But Qatar has been very, very helpful to us in this process, and I think you'll find that. I think maybe the most influential, very influential, very strong with. Hamas, they're very strong, and Turkey's likewise been helpful. I mean, honestly, UAE, Saudi Arabia, everybody's been helpful. I just spoke today with the King of Jordan, and he's been terrific too. I can't think of any country that's been negative about this. This is why it should happen. I mean, everybody wants it to happen. And usually when everybody, including, I think, Hamas, And when they want it to happen, it's going to happen. No, I think he's a crooked guy. He's a dirty cop. Comey, I think he's a dirty cop. He's recognized by many people to be a dirty cop and dishonest guy. So all I have to do is, I have nothing to do with the case. I just say, good luck. No, I don't call anybody. You know, I'm allowed to do that if I wanted to do that. But Comey's a crooked guy. He has been for years. And he got caught. Look, he lied. This is just a simple case. He totally lied. And then he confirmed the lie on, I guess, numerous occasions, or at least one occasion. He confirmed the lie. He said, that's what I said, and I stand by it. And, you know, I mean, the guy, and he didn't say, to the best of my knowledge. He didn't say, well, I don't remember. He made a very definitive statement, and a very important statement concerning him. And he got caught in an outright lie. And that's why a group of people, it wasn't me that voted, they voted to indict him. But he's a crooked guy, in my opinion, and we'll find out. The court's going to determine
Senator from
that
Nebraska.
All ag producers and tariff makes us nervous.
Yeah, please.
But earlier this year, I took a step back to look at the bigger economic picture, and I became one of the first members of Congress to support the administration's effort to level the playing field on trade. I've said many times that the administration deserves time to secure strong trade deals that benefit Americans. However, the reality is this. Farmers are targeted by other countries like China. I've seen it firsthand back home in Nebraska. Producers of corn, soybeans, and other top commodities, they are under crushing pressure.
That's very important to me.
Rising input costs and uncertainty have driven farm finances to levels reminiscent of the 1980s crisis, which bankrupted thousands, and it hollowed out our rural communities. Since 2020, seed costs have jumped 18%. Fuel and oil are up 32%. Fertilizer has spiked 37%. And interest expenses have surged an alarming 73%.
It's sitting in a big ocean. And it was
our soybean producers are projected to lose about $100 an acre this year. On top of that, storage costs for soybeans and corn have risen steeply.
And then you see
for everybody.
And you see
this is
ripped
crippling.
back into the seat because the G-forces
and it's happening during one of the largest harvests in memory.
Yesterday. And,
Madam President, time is running out, and we need to turn this around. We need a strong and positive set of actions.
I met some women pilots that
ensuring our farmers can weather tough economic times must be a national priority. It's clear that farm aid is needed at this time.
Largely sailors.
Congress has taken some steps towards this goal. We passed $10 billion in farm aid last December. And we included a major boost for producers in July's reconciliation law. However, that money is not going to reach any farmers until next fall. And producers need to have relief right now.
Marines, the Coast Guard, Air Force.
But here's the challenge. We also need lasting, long-term solutions that help provide stability and real opportunity for ag producers.
Now they want to be.
That's why one of the fastest ways we can deliver results is by unlocking year-round access to E15, a clean, American-made biofuel. Permanent nationwide access would increase corn demand by 2.5 billion bushels a year.
somehow
lower
the
gas
country developed the
prices for
spirit.
families.
Financially, yes, but also
And
with the
it
military.
would
And now we have record
drive
levels of
new
people
revenue
wanting to
into
be in.
rural
Every
communities.
force is filled. We have waiting lists
President
to get into
Trump's
the Marines,
day
to the
one
Army,
order
to the
to
Navy,
promote
to the Air Force. We have
E-15 through
Coast
his
Guard.
National
We have waiting
Energy
lists to get
Emergency
in.
Declaration.
It's amazing, actually, what's
You know, that
happened.
was
We
a
have
strong
country that's-
start.
It was a dead
But
country, and I say it all the time. We had
temporary
a dead country
they
one
don't
year ago.
cut it.
Now we have the hottest country.
That's
anywhere
why I
in the world. And it's
reintroduced
nice
my
to see. I've watched you
nationwide
for years on
Consumer and
television.
Fuel
So it's
Retailer
nice to
Choice
meet you.
Act
Thank you
earlier
very
this
much,
year.
everybody.
When I first introduced this bill nearly a decade ago, it felt like an uphill climb. Well, today, momentum is finally on our side. We have strong bipartisan support. We have new industry partners, including members of the oil and refining sector, who are at the table. And this is a key piece of Republicans' plan to lower energy costs, to strengthen American production, and to give consumers more choices at the pump. Trade, well, that's the other half of the equation. Former President Biden's lack of a clear trade agenda left America with a $49 billion trade deficit, undercutting farmers in Nebraska and all across this country. President Trump, you can help reverse that deficit by holding China accountable and ensuring American-grown soybeans have access to global markets, a lifeline for farmers facing losses this harvest season. President Trump has already made progress on this trade front. Take beef. Australia has sold nearly $29 billion worth of beef to U.S. consumers, while American ranchers have been locked out of their market. Do you know how much beef, American beef, Australia bought? 0. Now we need the same kind of breakthrough by opening up a market for soybeans and corn and every other American crop. At the end of the day, farmers and ranchers want programs that work, and we want markets to sell our products. Madam President, simply put, we just want a fair shot. By securing strong trade deals and building new markets through year-round E-15, we can revitalize the farm economy. We can bolster United States energy security, and we can ensure that America's producers can keep feeding and fueling this nation for generations to come. Thank you, Madam President. Yield the floor. Madam President.
The senator from Nebraska.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that it be in order for the two leaders to enter motions to reconsider without being on the prevailing side with respect to the cloture votes on the motion to proceed to S-2882 and H.R. 5371. Further, that mandatory quorum calls with respect to S-2882, H.R. 5371, and the en blanc nominations provided for under the provisions of S-Res 412 be waived.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.
Bueno, muchas gracias a todos. No tengo líneas rojas, cosas que son muy importantes.
Señor presidente, cerrará el gobierno, señor presidente, si la votación de hoy fracasa en el Senado. ¿Eso sucederá a provocar despidos?
Podría, en algún momento lo hará.
Conduciendo.
Sí, quiero decir, dados por sus vidas. Creo que la gente de Portland está asustada. Miras lo que ha pasado con Portland a lo largo de los años. Es un infierno ardiente. Y luego tienes a una juez que perdió el rumbo y trata... Este fin de semana...
Señor, ¿tienes un mensaje?
Sí, por favor.
Para la Marina ayer celebrando su 250 aniversario. Fue increíble. ¿Puedes hablar sobre eso y cómo?
A medida que nos acercamos al 250 aniversario de